I mean, it just sounds like, again, you mentioned organic and so many other just seemed natural connections to build those
Yeah.
relationships and conversing and, looking at some of the adults, as adults, but yet mentors and friends and not, like you mentioned, sometimes this very, teacher student
Yeah.
engagement. So, um, you mentioned piano, you mentioned some other things, but what other extracurricular or activities or, I know sometimes parents are seeking sports opportunities and those types of things. So what are some extracurricular activities that you found to be most successful?
Uh, Piano was the longest term extracurricular activity. I did that from age 4 till now. I'm still doing it. So that definitely was the most consistent. I also found we found Club Vibes, the local club of blind people, and they actually did have a few sports opportunities for a while. We did tandem biking. We would sometimes get together and play beeping kickball. I did a 5K with them. I did a couple of different walks with them, and we did a lot of things like that. And of course, during COVID, we moved to virtual, and now we're basically all online for the most part. But I also, I guess you would count this as an extracurricular, but I became a website tester for accessibility in high school, which is another thing that I think taught me assistive technology, because I kind of just had to learn on the job and through the trainings that they provided. And of course, I was a student intern with Tech Vision, the company where I got assistive technology training from.
And then also her O&M instructor offered summer camps and weekly, like monthly weekend things. So a lot of them we couldn't go to because we would have piano or whatever else, but like adventure core and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of them, like one of the ones I really enjoyed was field day, because every blind kid knows that field day is completely inaccessible.
Yeah.
And it can be terrible when you don't have
and it's
vision.
so hot and miserable, and you're just sitting there trying to make it work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had, field day for blind kids, and sighted siblings and stuff could come too, and be blindfolded when we were doing the various activities. But we would do, running and beeping kickball or beeping baseball sometimes. The long jump, I think, all the track and field stuff, and then I think we even did yoga or something like that. So we did a bunch of different things at that field day. So that was a lot of fun. I did some, blind sports at the summer camps that we went to, or that I went to, and we bought a goal ball, and I played with my family a couple times.
I got so many injuries. Goal ball is hard, and especially because we have a concrete driveway, and so it's different than a gym floor when you're diving for that ball.
Yeah, and we did not have padding, which in hindsight was probably not a good idea.
A toenail off or something, or a fingernail or something. It was not pretty, but it was fun. But yeah, and then electives for schoolwork, we did those interest-based. Well, I mean, her extracurriculars were interest-based too. Well, she did take dance for a while too at a dance studio.
Yeah,
that's like about 12.
Yeah.
But then it just became, she was more dedicated to piano. Now my other child does theater, and that's been a huge social network too, because every time you're in a show, you basically live with those people for 6 weeks. So and there's a lot of downtime. I think a lot of extracurriculars don't have enough downtime for kids to actually talk, especially sports, because you're playing, and dance was sort of the same way. Like you go into class, you take your class, and you leave. When they do camps and things like that, there's lunch, and there's other times that you have downtime to actually make friends. So I think when you're looking for extracurriculars, it's kind of important to make sure that you have those. If you're looking for socialization specifically, I wasn't really thinking that when I did it, but in hindsight, I can see that they made more friends when they had to travel somewhere, or they had rehearsals where they were sitting and waiting on other people's turn and that kind of stuff. where they actually had time to talk and make friends. But as far as electives go, we did those interest-based too. And so like she had a friend who was autistic, so she wanted to learn about autism. And so she read what, like 12 books,
Something like that.
something crazy, lots of books, not just little books, but thick books about autism. And so I gave her a credit for that. And I had one of my high school teacher friends look at the stuff and help me come up with a name for it and like what it would actually be called. And what kind of credit I could give for that.
Yeah, and I think we actually included some of the other psychology and self-help books that I had read.
I think we call it
because-
behavior analysis, the focus on autism.
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
because my dad is big into psychology and
Which
that
is
kind
funny
of
because
thing.
I'm the psych major.
Yeah. So he always had, book recommendations for that. And so I read it was as wide an array as books about sleep to like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and books like that, that teach you how other people think and how to interact with them. And so I did a lot of that general stuff, and then I did some emphasis on autism. There was another one that
We did a leadership class too, like leadership and personal development.
yeah.
So she read a lot of books like about leadership and how to be a good leader and team, like do hard things. That was team focused, right?
Mhm.
And a
And
lot of books like that.
yeah, and then there was one called, I think it's like Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't
That's a
Stop
good one.
Talking. That was a really good one, because I think one of the things that I actually had time to discover when we started homeschooling is that I'm not shy, but I am definitely an introvert, and I need time alone to be able to function. And so that, books like that showed me that, that's acceptable and is a need, that you can fulfill and still be a leader and a productive member of society. So that was really helpful.
Yeah. I can't think of any other electives. So we did a lot of music, obviously. So she got a lot of music credits. And then for piano each year, she had testing,
Music theory testing.
music theory testing. So we gave some music theory and music history
Mhm.
credits for that.
Yeah, I think I should get another music history credit just of how much I've learned in the past 2 years.
No, yeah, I got you. I talked to Harvard about that. See if they'll give you a credit.
I mean, honestly, I love the way that it has allowed you both to be flexible in your, Campbell's specific passions or interests, and then making that sort of fit the curriculum rather than
Right.
the opposite.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, I think, is just because she is such a reader. When she would read, get in deep dive into something. And a lot of our curriculum was designed that way. So like a lit-based curriculum that we loved was Guest Hollow. And it was like a mom who taught that way for years and then just wrote down what she used. And so I think Campbell was already doing that naturally, because she would fall into a rabbit hole of research of something.
Mhm.
And then I'd be like, okay, so you've read about 12 books about this, so I think you should get some school credit. So let's figure out how to make this a class.
Yeah.
Um,
My dad also had a tendency of having me write essays if I wanted something. So like when I wanted some sort of social media, when I was 13 or 14, he was like, okay, do some research and write me an essay about why you should or shouldn't have it. So I did a bunch of research, and actually at that time decided that I shouldn't have it when I did, all the research that I was supposed to do. And I actually went and read through like their privacy policy and stuff, which I don't know if everybody else finds that interesting. I'm kind of odd
No,
that way.
nobody
So yeah, we did things like that. And then my dad would sometimes bring home like things that he thought were cool from work that we would, categorize as science experiments. So
So all that
we
kind
did
of
a lot of
happened
different
organically
things. Yeah.
too. I think I try to tell people that homeschooling is just an extension of parenting, and it really is. And especially if you have a nerdy kid who loves to learn things
And nerdy parents.
and nerdy parents. Your house is sort of an environment of learning already, just because you're all kind of curious, I guess. I don't know. But you have to have space for that, and there are families who, I know that wouldn't work for, because they have to work, and do different things. And so it's easier to order a box of curriculum and go from there. But that was not accessible for Campbell. I couldn't order a box of print materials unless I sat there and read them to her all day, which we know. I have a problem when I read aloud. I yawn. I cannot stop yawning.
Yeah. I do think there are more online curriculums available now, even just through Khan Academy. Sometimes Khan Academy's math stuff isn't the kind of accessible that I prefer. But a lot of their other things are good. And of course you have things like Crash Course, and then just, other YouTube channels that do history or math or whatever. So
there are even lectures, like college lectures online, that you can listen to.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot out there. I can't imagine homeschooling like when I was in school, like in the 90s. I mean, I guess you would go to the library and dig up books, because we didn't have access to all of this. But
And I will say, I think the other thing that I'm hearing a lot about is just, really using the resources that you have and using them, or, the space to the max. That probably led to other conversations or other offerings. And you mentioned, having a friend who has autism and letting that just be like, what is that? How does that work? And diving into, like you said, a lot of that organic capacity in building your curriculum, and just the resources that you naturally had, and how can you use those to further interests, passions, and education. So
that was true with the Braille books too, because if she'd been in public school, she would have had to have had a Braille copy of whatever the teacher was teaching. And that in our district anyway, they change, every couple of years they get a new curriculum. For us, we could just use whatever the State Resource Center had. And then I would go on Amazon or wherever and get a teacher's edition, and we would make it work. And I think like your AP calculus book was 20 years old.
Well, that's a long story.
Yeah. Like so as they move away from Braille books, textbooks in general, then the Braille books aren't being made. We have a friend whose son was in public school, and the teachers were just doing math packets. And so a TBI was having to, transcribe those math packets all the time, at a huge quick turnover rate. And thankfully we didn't have to do that, because we could just use whatever we could find, and math is math a lot of time, especially in high school. It's not necessarily, everybody's afraid of Common Core and all that, but algebra is algebra, and we can make it work when we needed to. And Campbell can make it work. Obviously, I'm not a math person. She was good at that herself, and her dad, and like we had a retired math teacher that helped, and several other people, resources we had to reach out to. And that all kind of happened organically too. Like we would just have a need, talk to another family or person or friend about that need, and they would have an idea. Well, I have this friend that's a retired math teacher. How about let's see if they'll tutor you virtually or whatever.
Yeah. And then with Tech Vision, they paired me with a math professor to be my teacher. So she taught me a lot of tech, but especially when I was doing calculus, she also would help me with the content as well. And that's when I really fell in love. I always liked math, but I really fell in love with calculus. So I think Mom's probably got a weird look on her face.
Not at the slightest. I think it's been amazing. And I can't thank you for your insight on all of this. And we look forward to the next video.
Thank you.
Thank you.